insinuated that you basically gave a $9 million bribe in the form of an NIH grant to NIH-funded virologists to say the virus likely was from nature. Dr. Fauci, yes or no, did you reward the proximal origin authors by giving them NIAID grants or contracts?
Welcome back to Freedom Forge, the channel where we stand for faith, freedom, personal responsibility, and the constitutional principles that made America strong. If you believe in honest conversations, government accountability, and holding powerful officials to the same standard as every other citizen, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss our latest coverage. Today, we're looking at one of the most controversial moments from a Senate hearing examining questions surrounding the government's response to COVID-19 NIH research funding, the Wuhan Institute of Virology, EcoHealth Alliance, and broader issues of transparency and accountability. During the hearing, lawmakers questioned Dr. Anthony Fauci about allegations involving federal research funding, the origins debate surrounding COVID-19, and other taxpayer-funded research projects. Throughout much of the questioning shown in this hearing, Dr. Fauci repeatedly invoked his Fifth Amendment right and declined to answer many of the questions presented to him.
The Constitution.
When the COVID-19 virus broke out in Wuhan, China, you, Dr. Fauci, knew pretty much right away that NIH had funded Chinese labs, including those doing coronavirus research. There's email traffic from early January 2020 where your staff was flagging for you that NIH funded coronavirus research at the Wuhan lab through EcoHealth Alliance. Yet few Americans knew we funded the Wuhan lab because the funding went through a sub-award and was not reported to the public database like usaspending.gov as it should have been. Also, EcoHealth violated federal law by failing to report in its research papers how much taxpayer funding it spent on that research. At my request, the Government Accountability Office helped track down that $1.4 million of U.S. taxpayer money that was sent to the Wuhan Institute of Virology, both by you, Dr. Fauci, and through USAID. But first, it passed through EcoHealth Alliance, which I helped to get defunded through the NDAA. Dr. Fauci, did you intentionally use subaward funding to obscure NIH funding of Chinese biolabs and coronavirus research?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
NIAID awarded multi-million-dollar grants to a number of scientists shortly after they wrote publicly in the Proximal Origins paper that the COVID virus likely came from nature. Though documents Chairman Paul released last week show in private, those same scientists were much more open to the virus being from a lab. In 2023, Representative Jordan insinuated that you basically gave a $9 million bribe in the form of an NIH grant to NIH-funded virologists to say the virus likely was from nature. Dr. Fauci, yes or no, did you reward the proximal origin authors by giving them NIAID grants or contracts?
I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Dr. Fauci, we have learned that U.S. coronavirus researchers at UNC shipped, quote, humanized or transgenic mice to China by around 2017 for use in their dangerous coronavirus work. Under your NIAID coronavirus, researchers also used aborted baby body parts in mice research, and taxpayers paid for them to do that. NIH-funded coronavirus researcher Dr. Ralph Barrick and his colleagues at UNC put parts of livers, thymuses, and chunks of human fetal lung that they got from aborted, almost 5-month-old human babies. They put those parts in their research mice. They disgustingly named them BLTL mice and wrote they had created a, quote, sandwich of aborted body parts in the mice. Get it, folks? BLT. A BLT sandwich. Your RML lab employees in Montana also ordered and used aborted baby body parts in their taxpayer-funded research. And emails show how they plan to use those mice for post-COVID work. NIH funded putting aborted babies' fingers and scalps off the heads of aborted babies and putting them into the backs of research mice. The scalps later grew fine baby hair in the mice. They even included those disgusting photos in their research paper that you funded. Not all of those were research on coronaviruses, but some were. Thankfully, the current NIH director has said, no more of this. Dr. Fauci, yes or no? Do you think that human aborted parts should be put into mice for coronavirus research?
The advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Mr. Chairman, would you direct the witness to answer the questions that we have been asking?
He probably would if he was here, but I can direct it. But no, I think we understand his answer.
We do understand that. Americans are asking for accountability, Dr. Fauci, and your silence is very telling.
Now, before we begin, it's important to remember one thing. A witness invoking the Fifth Amendment is exercising a constitutional right. The Fifth Amendment protects individuals from being compelled to incriminate themselves, and exercising that right is not, by itself, proof of guilt. At the same time, Americans are free to ask difficult questions about government transparency, public trust, and whether officials have fully explained decisions made during one of the most consequential public health crises in modern history. Watching this hearing, I couldn't help but think about how much damage was done to the public's trust over the past several years. Regardless of whether you're a Republican, Democrat, independent, vaccinated, unvaccinated, or somewhere in between, millions of Americans came away from the pandemic feeling like government institutions expected blind trust instead of earning it through complete transparency. That is exactly why hearings like this matter. The questioning began with allegations surrounding NIH funding connected to coronavirus research at the Wuhan Institute of Virology through EcoHealth Alliance. The senator argued that NIH officials knew very early in 2020 that federal money had supported coronavirus-related work connected to the Wuhan lab. He further claimed that the funding structure made it more difficult for the public to immediately identify where taxpayer dollars ultimately went. Those are serious allegations. If taxpayer money is being sent overseas for research involving potentially dangerous viruses, Americans deserve complete transparency. It doesn't matter whether the research occurred in China, Europe, or inside the United States. Government agencies work for the American people, not the other way around. From a conservative perspective, this is where one of our biggest concerns has always been. Limited government doesn't simply mean spending less money. It means government agencies must be completely accountable for every dollar they spend. Taxpayers shouldn't have to rely on years of investigations, congressional subpoenas, or watchdog reports just to figure out where their own money went. If the government believes funding certain research is necessary, then explain it openly. Don't hide behind bureaucratic layers that make ordinary Americans struggle to follow the money. The senator also referenced work by the Government Accountability Office tracing approximately $1.4 million in taxpayer funding that reportedly reached the Wuhan Institute of Virology through intermediary organizations. Whether someone believes that funding was justified or not, Americans have every right to ask whether oversight was adequate. If government officials can confidently defend those decisions, then they should welcome scrutiny instead of fearing it. But here's where the hearing took a dramatic turn. The senator directly asked Dr. Fauci whether NIH intentionally used subawards to obscure funding connected to Chinese laboratories. Rather than answering yes or no, Dr. Fauci invoked his Fifth Amendment rights. Again, let's be clear. The Constitution gives every American, including public officials, the right against self-incrimination. That constitutional protection exists for a reason and should be respected. However, from a standpoint of public accountability, many viewers are likely to find repeated refusals to answer frustrating, especially when the questions concern decisions made using taxpayer money during a global pandemic. For years, Americans were told to trust the experts. Now, many Americans simply want answers. Those are two very different things. The hearing then shifted toward one of the most debated issues of the pandemic, the origins of COVID-19. The senator questioned whether scientists who authored the influential Proximal Origin paper later received NIH funding after publicly supporting the view that the virus most likely emerged naturally. He suggested that private communications painted a more uncertain picture than the paper itself conveyed and asked whether grants were awarded as a reward. Once again, Dr. Fauci declined to answer by invoking the Fifth Amendment. Whether those allegations ultimately prove accurate or not, the broader issue remains significant. Science depends on public confidence. That confidence is strengthened when scientific disagreements are discussed openly, not when people feel that questions are dismissed because they are politically inconvenient. One lesson conservatives have repeatedly emphasized throughout the pandemic is that science advances through debate. Healthy skepticism isn't anti-science. It's part of science. If experts are confident in their conclusions, they should be willing to defend them in public discussion. The hearing later moved into another highly controversial topic involving federally funded research using human fetal tissue in laboratory mice. The senator described research involving so-called BLT mice and other studies using human fetal tissue obtained following elective abortions. These descriptions were graphic and emotionally charged, reflecting long-standing ethical objections held by many pro-life Americans. As someone who believes every human life has inherent value, I understand why many conservatives find this issue deeply troubling. The debate here isn't simply about scientific capability. It's about moral boundaries. Just because something can be done scientifically does not automatically mean it should be done. Research ethics have always involved balancing potential scientific benefits against deeply held moral principles. Reasonable people disagree on where that line should be, but it is appropriate for lawmakers to question how taxpayer dollars are being used. The senator asked Dr. Fauci whether he supported the use of fetal tissue in coronavirus-related research. Once again, he declined to answer. By this point in the hearing, a pattern had clearly emerged. Question after question, the same response. The advice of counsel, I respectfully declined to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment. Eventually, the senator asked the chairman to direct Dr. Fauci to answer. The chairman acknowledged the request, but stated that everyone understood the witness's position. Watching this exchange, one thought kept coming back to me. Public trust cannot simply be demanded. It has to be earned. Over the last several years, Americans were asked to make enormous sacrifices. Businesses closed. Schools shut down. Churches struggled to remain open. Families were separated from loved ones. Workers lost jobs. Children missed important years of education. Millions followed government guidance because they believed public officials were acting with complete honesty and transparency. That is precisely why these hearings continue to draw so much public attention. People aren't just looking for political victories. They're looking for confidence that institutions are worthy of the trust they ask citizens to place in them. Whether you agree with every question asked during this hearing or not, congressional oversight exists for a reason. No public official should be beyond scrutiny. No agency should be exempt from oversight. No taxpayer-funded program should be immune from difficult questions. That's not an attack on science. That's how constitutional government is supposed to work. As conservatives, we've often argued that concentrated power deserves greater scrutiny, not less. Whether that power exists inside government agencies, corporations, media organizations, or academic institutions, accountability protects freedom. Transparency protects liberty. Oversight protects democracy. If government officials acted appropriately, then transparency should reinforce public confidence. If mistakes were made, the American people deserve honest acknowledgement and meaningful reforms to reduce the chance of similar problems in the future. One of the greatest strengths of the American constitutional system is that no office, no agency, and no individual is supposed to be beyond questioning. Congress has a responsibility to investigate. Witnesses have constitutional rights. Citizens have every right to evaluate what they see and reach their own conclusions based on the available evidence. That balance is one of the defining features of a free society. Whether this hearing changes anyone's opinion about Dr. Fauci will depend on each viewer's assessment of the evidence and the broader context. But one thing is certain: questions surrounding COVID-19, government funding decisions, scientific transparency, and institutional accountability remain issues of enormous public interest, and they're likely to continue being debated for years to come. Here at Freedom Forge, we'll continue bringing you these hearings, breaking down the arguments from a constitutional conservative perspective, and encouraging respectful discussion grounded in facts rather than slogans. If you found this analysis valuable, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Freedom Forge, and share it with friends and family who care about government accountability and constitutional principles. I'd also like to hear your thoughts in the comments. Do you believe these hearings are helping restore public trust, or do you think more transparency is still needed? Let us know below, and as always, thank you for watching Freedom Forge.